The Commission for Gender Equality is a constitutional entity established in terms of Chapter 9 of the Constitution, mandated to protect and attain gender equality, among other things. As part of its work, the Commission receives and investigates complaints from members of the public to ensure that people's rights are protected. To help us understand more, we have two legal officers from CGE who will explain the legal work done by the Commission. Have you been prejudiced on the basis of gender? Do you feel you have suffered a gender-related injustice? Stay tuned as my two guests from the Commission talk to us. You're watching Gender Space, and the focus is on the CGE's legal investigative mandate. Remember to share your thoughts with us on our socials. Scanner YouTube at Commission for Gender Equality, Facebook Commission for Gender Equality, kanti Instagram okakena ho CGE Live, ho X at CGE_ZA, okarumela email ho info@cge.org.za. Kana website dinhle motla fumana dintlha ka botlalo ke www.cge.org.za. Joining me in studio is Nothemba, Sonjica le Kegomeditswe me bona batswa Commission for Gender Equality. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
So good to have you. Ha re hle re kene ho tsona. Wena ngwaneso Kegomeditswe, ha re bua ka CGE. O ka re bua ka eng? What is it?
Okay. Commission for Gender Equality ke setheo se leng gore se tlhomilwe ka go ya ka molaotheo wa Afrika Borwa. So purpose ya teng go etsagale go nne le tekatekano mo go nne le tekatekano ya gender equality e go ya fitlhelwa mo Afrika Borwa.
Ke gola ke utlwe wena Nothemba hore what type of complaints should people submit to the Commission for Gender Equality? What are you looking for in a complaint?
Okay. As the legal department, Tina Sipanda complaints or izikhalazo that have to do with the restriction, the exclusion, and the discrimination on the grounds of your gender, okanye ubume bakho, or your sexual orientation. If you feel you've been discriminated on those grounds, then ungasifaka ke isikhalazo ku commission.
Ere ke botse ke utlwa o bua ka red ke hopola somebody a bua ka red restriction e le di jwalo ka ho di hlalosa. Going into that, if you feel you are being discriminated against or restricted against, in which spaces? Does it have a specific space? Higher, domestically, professionally, hokai?
It doesn't matter which space you feel discriminated against or where you've been discriminated against, because we have the mandate to investigate any complaint that is that has to do with gender discrimination. Whether you feel you've been discriminated or profiled at a club or at work or any other place. My colleague here will explain briefly on the type of complaints we have received, just to give the public a brief idea of complaints. This is Pandai.
Take us through the process of submitting a complaint. Moto a etsang tletlebo o latela metjhaife hore tletlebo ya hae le ele hloko le mamele.
Okay. Re na le so se re bitsang complaints manual. Mo complaints manual ya rona e directa go di complaints di romelwe in writing. So in writing ya teng e tla nna form. O kgona go access form e go website ya CGE jaka no e tlhalositse, and then o bo e romela ka email. Either wa itlisa ko officing ya rona physically, o tlo e dropa off ko di officing, kopa wa e romela ka email go genderinquiries@cge.org.za.
Nothemba, Haribua, when you investigate complaints as the Commission for Gender Equality, what kind of recourse do you explore to ensure justice for the complainant?
Recourse hlukana based on the complaint or isikhalazo that we receive. Because on the complaint form, sinayi section apho sibuzayo from the complainants directly uba ubufuna ixazululo njani. What recourse do you want as the complainant? And then depending on that case, we explore the recourse or whether it falls within a mandate here to as a CGE. Kwizikhalazo sifumana nezikhalazo ze sexual harassment, discrimination on the grounds of pregnancy. So recourse, it depends on that particular complainant, whether they want maybe policy development, they want their workplace to be trained on sexual harassment. So we evaluate the recourse whether it is in line with the mandate as the CGE and whether we have the powers to give to the complainant the type of recourse they are seeking.
Ke leboha Nothemba. E re ke kgutlele ho wena Kegomeditswe. What kind of complaints do you generally get that you find hore mofuta ona o batla o tlwaelehile o common? These are the common complaints that we receive.
Okay. Pele ga go arabane ke kopa o tlatseletsa ko Nothemba na e bua. In terms of recourse ne, go etsagala go motho ka fitla ko CG. Menyo la rona jaka Nothemba a tlhalositse. Wa tlhalosa gore fella ko kae ka mandate. So that's very important maybe for our community to understand that. Ba tlhaloganye gore ha eletsa ka ditaba tsa ditšhelete o re motho go kadimile tšhelete and o batla tla ko rona, we're not those typical legal officers. So re batla gore re le tlhalosetse gore we're not those people. When it comes to le succession e go tlhalosa gore ha se ba o na le motho a hlokofetse batswadi ba hlokofetse mme ka panta tentlong a ke re tla bo go te le fala motho le sala le bana or whoever. Rona re shaba fela gore na re fella mo ileng ga shabana le fa le fitetse because o le monna kapa o le hloya le lapa. That's the only time the CG intervene. Not necessarily gore o feel aggrieved kapa o feel o ka o discriminated because o sa fuwa o le ngwana ko ntlong. You understand? So batho ntse ba utlwisisa gore se taba ya gore ha wa fuwa tšhelete fela. So ha re dilane le complaints of that nature specifically.
Sure.
So that what we predominantly find in our complaints, what is common, bongata ba di complaint ba tsa rona, it's centered around sexual harassment, mesebetsing, boholo ba tsone ke mesebetsing. E bohlokwa gore our community must understand that o tshwanetse o be le gore o fitse complaint ka mogare. O setso feditse di processes tsa mesebetsing. Hona le sexual harassment policy. Ha ile gore ha diyo, ha re o thibele go tle CG, ntse re tlo investigate re ba tlo bona gore na di teng kapa ha diyo. Mare re tlo etsa batho gore ba qete pele di process ka hare.
O tseba ha re bua tjena re bua ka molao motho santsana ne be ba tlo ntšhaja bokae? Hobane ka nako nngwe motho ha tsebe le charge batho na le batho ba ka re nna ke tswa CG ka charge 5,000 ka hore ke charge.
No, ha re charge batho, that's why re hlalosang mandate wa rona ntho tso tsa bo ma ditšhelete bo criminal representation, succession plan in that matter, bo di divorce ha o hloka mueli o tlo emelang court. CGE does not execute the legal mandate a mokgwa o. So in sexual harassment ha o setso o tla o tlo tletlebo no ke ditse tletlebo mosebetsing ha ona di due processes rona re kena re investigate re batla o tseba di policy tsa le di steps tso tshwantse o latetse ke tse feng ha se hona le di gap re tla etsa investigative report be re fana ka di recommendations tsa gore employer ke processes tse feng tsa tshwantse di latele to ensure that wena you're not prejudiced as a victim inside the organization.
Mona he re bua ka setheo sa mmuso se etseditsweng hore se sireletse ditokelo tsa hao. You can lodge a legal complaint with the CGE by calling our hotline. Hopola ke 0800 00 7709 kapa o ka romella tletlebo ya hao ka email ho genderenquiries@cge.org.za. Re tlo tswella pele ka taba tsena tse ntseng re di tshohla ka mora kgefutswene khutshwanyane e re ke re titi poti.
One of the important roles of the Commission is to educate our communities around human rights and gender equality. So we do a lot of education, especially at community level, in order to raise consciousness about gender equality and human rights. And then from those education initiatives, that's where we get a lot of complaints, gender discrimination complaints. So in Limpopo, we look at issues around maintenance, we look at issues around customary marriages, and then we'll look at issues around gender-based violence, which is very rife in the province, especially around the district of Vembe and Mupani, where we get a lot of cases around rape and sexual offenses. So that is the work that we do. And on an advisory role of the Commission, we work with the government and private institutions on ensuring that there is gender-responsive planning and budgeting.
That was Tsepa Mokgokong, Provincial Manager in Limpopo, explaining more about the work of the CGE. We are discussing the CGE's legal investigative mandate on today's episode. Nothemba, Sonjica le Kegomeditswe are here with us to explore the Commission's legal mandate further. Hopola hle re ka thabela ho utlwa hore maikutlo a hao a reng. Kena YouTube O qoqe le Commission for Gender Equality, ho Facebook ki Commission for Gender Equality, kanti Instagram ki CGE Live. Se fetwe kena mane ho X ene tsejwa ka hore ke Twitter @CGE_ZA, kanti ka romela email ho info@cge.org.za. Kena website ho fumana dintlha ka botlalo. This is where you get the information that you will need. O ka kena ho www.cge.org.za. Re lana ra bua pele ho mona hore mosebetsi wa komishini e hlile o sephara. We understand that as part of the legal work, the commission also has the authority to call private and public entities to account. Ke bua le lona bana beso. A ke le re hlalosetse. In what instances does this happen? Kegomeditswe.
Normally it will happen we've realized there's a judgment that came out that would have issues, discussing issues of gender. And we try to establish, is this a pattern amongst companies? For example, it's transformation is one of them. There's systemic investigations. Systemic, if there's a general issue in society, it's an influx, it's the complaints. So we take the initiative to investigate these matters in terms with our mandate.
Nothemba, in the public hearings you've already held, what are some of the issues that you find the entities don't comply with these points?
Enye yezinto esizifumanayo kwezi hearing is that policies company is outdated. For example, sexual harassment policies zabo or the recruitment policies zabo sifumana skills development they are lacking in terms of upscaling women and persons with disabilities. Or they're not accommodative of LGBTQIA+ communities.
Kegomeditswe, what do you do in a situation where a company, department, kapa entity does not want to come and is not willing to come and be held accountable?
Okay, in terms of Section 12, the Commission for Gender Equality Act, so Section 12 once you've appeared before the commission, then you're obligated to that we pose again the Chapter 9 institutions in terms of the Constitution. So, in terms of Section 18, we lodge a criminal case against the accounting officer, and then the prosecutor, then the sanction prosecutor either a fine or by imprisonment.
Talk to us about how easy it is to get the CGE to come and help me as a business person sitting at home thinking I don't even have this policy in my business. How easy is it for me to get that kind of attention from you?
We do have a public education and information unit that goes out and does trainings in those different employers where they train them on sexual harassment, for example. I'm just going to make an example of that. So there is an updated King's Code on sexual harassment. So we do offer that type of training, and we are accessible. We are open to assisting companies. We are committed to advancing gender transformation in that sense.
How bua ka King Forge now tsebe o bua ka ntho tse ntsi ke nyetsa ntho tse monate tse ke di ratang. Wa tseba keng ha o shebelletse lenaneo lena o utlwa le wena hore ditaba tsena wa di hloka di ka o thusa hore o ahe kgwebo e tsitsitseng e hlomphang molao e thusang hore tekatekano e be teng. Hopola ho ikopanya le CGE re tlo boela ro fa dintlha hape. But for now, let's go for a commercial break. Stay tuned as we continue our discussions around these issues after the break. You tuned into Gender Space, the show that tackles issues related to gender inequality. Kajeno re tsepamisitse maikutlo mosebetsing o etsuwang ke bana ba etsang diphuputso ba molao ka hara CGE. Re tswela pele with the two ladies who are my guests. I'm so glad you are here. Now, tell us about the litigation work that the CGE has been involved in. Kegomeditswe.
Okay. The CGE currently in a court, the matter today. In the Koko matter, in the lower court, magistrate, issue ya consent ka rape. was adjudicated over. So there was, I would say, tacit behavior. For example, what happened in that case is that they were about to engage in a sexual activity, so the girl did not outrightly or strongly say, hey. So the judgment was like, how it cannot be construed. I mean, it cannot automatically be a no. You understand? Someone could interpret that as consent.
Okay.
So the CG is of the stance that that cannot be the position, because it perpetuates a rape culture. Because what happens to people by Longkore, they're not as strong and vocal in terms of saying no. So currently the CGE is in that matter and taking it on appeal on that aspect in the Eastern Cape.
Sure. What do you mean strongly? What does that mean?
Yeah. So the position is strongly, it must come across to the perpetrator. Because sometimes you could be very shocked that this is happening to you and then you're numb in the process. But maybe but you're saying so softly. So the interpretation can be your basic even in a soft voice, should be heard by the perpetrator. Hence, the CG is on a strong firm that I don't have to shout, I don't have to carry you off me, I don't have to be fighting for you to understand. I said no.
Sure.
If I can just add, sorry.
If
I can just add, with regards to the case that my colleague was explaining, ECGE in with the interpretation and the understanding of consent. There's certain conduct that can be seen as implied consent. For example, your body language. Uyamvumela ukuthi lo muntu uhleli naye akuphuze okanye akukabule, uyamvumela ukuthi akukhulule impahla. Lo nto leyo ayinokwazi ukubona as if uyavuma to the penetration. Izinto ezinjalo azibonakalisi uba uyavuma to i-penetration. Just because ndivumela ukuthi ngiphuze, ngavuma ukuthi ngikhulule, it doesn't mean ngiyavuma ukuthi silale. Yabo, that's the stance of the CGE.
Every step itshwanela ebele consent ka mantswe a mang. Ska assume how u khonne ho etsa step 1, it means tse 10 kaofela di included. How do you select the cases that you take to court?
I-commission iye ibone uba okay, le case izaba no impact on gender equality. So that is how we select the cases. For instance, kusine case ka Van Wyk, ne, where kuthethwa nge-constitutionality ka-Section 25 of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act with regards to maternity leave. Nabantu abangotata ke ngoku bathi they feel they need nabo i-paternity leave. Ibe ila 4 months inikwe omama. So siyasibona uba okay, lo esisikhalazo size ngomuntu oyi-1, ne, but sizaba ne-impact kuluntu lonke. So that is how we decide whether to litigate or not.
Hey, yona interesting man. It's still in court.
Judgment has been reserved. Ibisandovela a High Court, ECGE ibi khona as applicants assisted by Nothemba.
Hey, ke tlo salam ga yena nna ke batla go utlwa gore na hantlentle e tsamaya jwang. So like if a case it globally impact on taba ya gender equality, then this is a case you take up. Which are some of the cases these were landmarks in terms of propelling the agenda ya gender equality?
Sinaye case ka Mahlangu, ne case in relation to Muslim marriages. Kwi case ya Mahlangu, i-court ya decide ba domestic workers fall within the ambit of COIDA. So that was a landmark judgment for us because most domestic workers ngabantu abangomama. That's how we decided to take it further, and then it resulted in a positive judgment, which now means domestic workers are included in terms of COIDA. With also case here Muslim marriages, it was decided that Divorce Act is unconstitutional with regards to it excludes Sharia marriages or Muslim marriages in that sense.
Re jwetseng he bana beso ka di successful cases tse leng hore di etsahetse libile ho tsona kapa you really feel muhila peng o tshwanela hore a tsebe ka tsona le hore some of the things that came out of those cases ke dife that we must really keep in mind?
I'll use an example from Nothemba's explanation, the ya mahlangu ya kweda. Ine bua ka bo mama ba kulumakang ko magae. Right? The Koida Act did not include bo mama, domestic workers, more definition ya bona gore ba bereki ke bo mama. So by virtue of that, bana ba sa khone claim a compensation ha ba limits mosebetsing. So because of the positive judgment that was laid down, now that the court did give a judgment to say that le bone ntse le ba bereki equally so, le motho a tsanang di officing, le motho ya sebetsang garaging, le motho a sebetsang as a mechanic, they themselves are employees le bone by virtue of the act. So in that sense, bo mama le bone ha ka ba lemala mesebetsing mahaeng, le bone ntse bana le a right to go claim go Koida if you employer bon oba registerile and they're also contributing to the fund.
Hey, wentse hantle bue na ya employer or na employer registered kapa jwang ka mantswe a mang, it's not just about the domestic worker, it's also about the employer. Hore we can protect our workers ka ho ba registera jwalo ho Koida. Ditaba tsena di bohlokwa ka tsela e makatsang hobane wa elellwa hore ha o le lehlatsipa kapa ho etsahala hape ka lehlakoreng le leng hore ebe wena o mosebeletsi wa malapeng o so tseba jwale hore le wena o kenyeleditswe tabeng ya ditokelo tsena tse tshireleditsweng. Re santsaneng re tlo kena ditabeng tse ngata jwang, empa ke batla ho utlwa hore mantswe a o qetela ke afe ka morao re ithute dintho tse ngata ha kana ka ditaba tsena. Just your parting shots as we leave today. What would you say to our viewer regarding our topic today?
Our message is just not for the viewers, also for employers and companies. We just want to say that they must heed the call for gender transformation. We are not their enemies. When we call them to appear, we're not fighting with them. We want to assist them. So we are here as the Commission for Gender Equality to make sure that it benefits the greater public, even vulnerable groups, persons with disabilities, LGBTQIA+ communities. We are here to assist companies with gender transformation.
Kegomeditswe?
Just to add on, it's just to ensure that society sa rona se kgona go phedisa molaotheo wa Afrika Borwa. I mean, the Constitution says we're equal in terms of Section 9. So why leave others behind? You know, Bo Employment Equity Act, Labor and the basic conditions of employment, they are there to protect but when no khali kana go tsa pele bana ba sna the same advantage. So ra ba kopa le tsone di employ o sa emela go bitse. Do you understand? Take the initiative as the responsible citizen to come and say, ke kopa thuso, ke batla go fitlela mo, mara ke fihle ke kopa le nthuseng. That's the message we just have for everyone.
Akere wa utlwa hore CGE itlile with a smiling face ho rona akajeno. Ke taba tse monate. But many of us at home have experienced discrimination and injustice in various ways. If you have any grievance that is gender-related, you can lodge a legal complaint with the CGE by calling this hotline, hailing a toll-free number on 0800 00 7709. Kapa o ka romela tletlebo ya hao ka email ho genderenquiries@cge.org.za. Remember to share your thoughts with us on our social media pages. Kena ho YouTube @Commission for Gender Equality, Facebook ki Commission for Gender Equality, kanti Instagram ki CGE Live, ho X ki @CGE_ZA, email o ka romela ho info@cge.org.za. Website e tshwereng dintlha ka botlalo o kena ho yona ke www.cge.org.za. You've been watching Gender Space on Dumisa TV, channel 340. We do this again next week. Until then, nake twasa bu sale fatsi girl ke usula khazak. Re tla bonana hape nako e tlang. Goodbye.